pessimists, cynics. They're all basically alike. And it doesn't matter if they're left-wing, right-wing, liberal or conservative, affiliated or non-affiliated. Same bullshit, different bull anus. And we can forego any responses, pointing out how they're different, defending one or the other. And I know there are legions of defenders out there. Loyal defenders of ego. Spare me that bullshit, because all pessimists and cynics spout bullshit. And that's one thing they share in common. Another thing they share in common is a hatred and contempt for humanity. The little details of how they differ, or how they agree or disagree on certain things don't matter. The overall hate and contempt is what they share in common. What pessimists and cynics are basically saying is that the way things are, or how things are, is bullshit. It's something wrong, it's something flawed, it's something you should hate. Something that needs to be fixed. Beyond that, the only optimism that they show is in propagating their veiled fascism. It is a form of fascism, that their truth is the only truth, that their way is the only right way. And this is the veiled fascism, the my solution or no solution. But what's funny is that cynics and pessimists, either directly or indirectly, are trying to give off some kind of impression that they somehow have a solution, some bullshit about how to fix the bullshit. But who decided that pessimists and cynics are authorities on bullshit? Self-elected deciders of bullshit. Ones who feel they're in a position to point out what's bullshit. I mean, I know it takes a bullshitter to know bullshit, but you can't trust a bullshitter to give you anything but bullshit. And they're in a position to call other people out on their bullshit. And so by that reasoning, you also have to be held accountable for the things that are coming out of your mouth. And yeah, I know, whatever, right? Yeah, whatever. React with contempt, proclaim it bullshit, and then expound what you think the real bullshit is. A one-trick pony. That's all you can do. That's all you ever do. And that's why you are a one-trick pony. And yeah, somehow you are the only one that knows what the truth is, right? But what you fail to concede or recognize or acknowledge is that it's all bullshit. In something that is composed entirely of bullshit, you are having thoughts, making belief systems, and taking stances with bullshit and calling it not bullshit. That's the real bullshit. Somehow your bullshit is the real bullshit, man. And I know you got some bullshit about my bullshit and why it's bullshit, right? And you're right. What I'm saying is bullshit. But any and everything that you say is also bullshit. How can anything within bullshit be called not bullshit? Any authority on truth and falseness within bullshit is a bullshitter. Anybody that thinks that somehow that they can fix bullshit is a bullshitter. And what bullshitters never want to address is the connection to bullshit. The connection gives us experience, what we call real or reality. But this is just a connection point, stemming from imagination, which produces an illusion of what we call real. Illusions cannot be fixed. The only thing you can do is to address your connection to that illusion. To call it illusion is the same thing as calling it bullshit, and there's nothing that you can say to prove that it's not bullshit. I don't care how deep you dig in the annals of science, how deep in the anus of science you go. Any scientific proof is bullshit. because there's no such thing as real. For something to be considered really real, it has to be forever and permanently manifested in some kind of form, never changing, never going into non-existence. If something doesn't exist, then it's not real. It's just in the imagination. How do you possibly explain something within something that is ultimately unexplainable? Theists say that in the beginning there was nothing, and then God just popped it into existence. Atheists say that in the beginning there was nothing, and that somehow crude forces, primitive forces, got lucky on a 1 in a zillionth chance and produced chemistry that through a biological process could reproduce itself. Okay, so where did the crude forces come from? What is the Big Bang taking place in? What was before the crude forces? What was before the Big Bang? There can be no answer because there was nothing. Nothing is what existence comes out of. Anything that you can name or point to will trace back to non-existence. And there's only two things you can really truly say about it. That it's forever changing and heading towards non-existence as its end. Anything that comes out of nothing, constantly changes and then fades into nothingness again, cannot be called real. Something might be called real because it can be verified within a certain period of time, but things never stop changing, so what was once called real slowly becomes unreal. Then new things are called real. If you point at something and call it something, but then that something changes into something else, then what you originally called that something was ultimately not true. There is only ever one time period that consciousness operates in, and that is the now. The now floats in a sea of constant change. Constant change can never be accurately called anything, because its very makeup is constant change. So therefore, nothing true can ever be spoken about anything that goes on within the context of constant change. The only thing that can accurately be spoken is that out of nothing emerged a constantly changing context that will ultimately fade into non-existence again. And there is only the now. Ideas of yesterday and tomorrow exist only in the imagination. And since the now will one day pass into non-existence, then even the now cannot be considered real. Because if it doesn't exist, then it isn't real. When things no longer exist, they no longer exist. They never existed. When things are in non-existence, there is no outside perspective, no records kept or witnesses as to what possibly may have existed before non-existence. So it's a very complex conscious fabrication built on nothing, received from nothing, heading towards nothing. And this is why the one-trick pony act of the pessimist or the cynic is so tiresome. And there's nothing more annoyingly hypocritical than a bullshitter trying to sell bullshit. And yeah, I say hypocrite, operating under false impressions and indications that you're actually here to help people, that you care or give a damn about anything. People that need help need your help like they need a hole in the head. People are lost in the darkness, and you're not shining a light. You are going up to them in the darkness, kicking them, punching them, cursing at them, demeaning them, gratifying off indulging in hate, and inflicting suffering and pain in others. A sardonic, sarcastic, contemptuous, condescending, hate-mongering, control-freak egomaniac. And you spread hate. You speak hate. And you're not going to get any pats on the back or thumbs up just because you don't hate any particular group or item within the inventory. The fact that you hate everything and everybody, the entire inventory, makes you a hate monger. You still engage in hate speech. And just because you're not singling out specific groups does not make it any better. So you're not here to help people. You hate people. You don't believe any growth or change is possible. You don't believe in the evolution of consciousness. You think everything is material and that consciousness is some kind of byproduct of materialism. That life in existence is worthy of hate, which justifies your hatred of it. People that spew hate, even if what they're saying is true, will never resound universally. No one wants to be infected by someone else's hatred. It's bad enough to have to put up with the style and swagger of ego and self-importance. But on top of that, to have to put up with venom and hatred is more than any civilized man can stand. Cynics and pessimists. A one-trick pony. The real bullshit.